This was one of Gibson's worst ideas. Welcome back, Troglodytes, to your daily dose of guitar information, the Trogly's Guitar Show. With every poor-selling guitar, generally comes a story of how they become collectible in the future. Today, we're talking about the very strange Gibson Les Paul Skyline. I will never forget the first time I ran across one of these on Reverb. I seriously thought it was a botched aging job. Because in my head, this is supposed to be a regular black Les Paul custom that just happens to have black binding, and then they scraped away the black to reveal an original sunburst finish underneath it. But then, if you look closer at it, you go, oh, there's some buildings there. And hey, is that the Eiffel Tower? This is known as the Paris Skyline. It was one of those crazy ideas towards the late years of the Henry J era where they were just throwing things at the market hoping something would sell, is the way we can look back on it today. That's when models were birthed such as the modern Flying V that broke the internet, the modern double cuts, modern arch top. Don't forget about other crazy things like the Year of the Dog Les Paul, Scorpion Les Pauls, the Ice Flame. But to back up my reasoning behind what I thought this was, they also had a painted over series around this time in many different colors. We've reviewed a blue into black, where they kind of took from Fender tradition, custom colors got painted over, and then over the years they wear away and expose the original coloring. But the next most striking feature about this guitar has to be the black binding. On the neck, headstock, everywhere. So this series is basically like blending the Gibson Les Paul Boogie Van with the Moonless Night. And as far as I'm aware, there were 4 different ones offered. We've got the one we're talking about today, Paris Skyline. They also had one for Japan with Tokyo. It's got Mount Fuji on it. That's pretty sweet. And then they had 2 for the USA with Nashville Skyline. That one makes sense, home of Gibson, as well as New York. Basically, the idea behind this series is find a super fan of each city and be able to sell maybe a couple of units of these just for fun. They retailed for $4,500. However, surprise, surprise, they didn't sell too well. Quite a few of these ended up on a dealer hot sheet and were sold at shops like Dave's Guitars in Wisconsin and Hubert Breeze in Michigan for blowout pricing between $2,000 and $2,500 around 2019. As far as how many exist, unlike many of the other 2018, 2017 limited editions, I could not find an official marketing page for these, so we don't know at this time. I've seen at least 2 of the Parises, but besides just the design, there's also a coloration difference between these. You see this example, it goes from like a red to an orange to kind of a white to a very faint blue. There's a different version of the Paris one that has more blue to it. So there's definitely some variations within the bursted paint job. And it feels appropriate to bring up the Hollywood Skyline guitar. That is not technically part of this series. That was custom ordered by Guitar Center Hollywood to celebrate the grand reopening of the Hollywood Guitar Center store. We know for sure they made 4 of those. They were $12,500 brand new, but they had the flame top with the Hollywood sign on it, a really sweet blue quilted headstock veneer, abalone inlays. It was a true ebony fretboard within the Rich Light era. They got custom buckers rather than regular stuff. That one was way higher spec and appears to have came out slightly after those around November of 2018. However, it's very possible the Skyline series was thought of around the same time. Like maybe it's Guitar Center who was like, hey, we're doing this, and Gibson's like, what if we do more, but less fancy, just do paint jobs? So here's what we got. I know I said it's a Les Paul custom and we've got the 7-ply binding on the top, but when you flip it over, it's more so like a Les Paul standard. They didn't bother binding it back here. And it's just a regular ebony paint job. They didn't number these like the Boogie Vans or anything like that. But you do get a cool matching truss rod cover. So I can fully appreciate that this guitar would not be for everyone, but when you can pick one up for cheaper than a regular custom, I say why not? But being a 2018, you're going to have the 2018 quirks like rich light fretboard and usually questioning quality control, small nitpicky details. But these did ship originally with a Gibson custom shop case that would look like this. I wanted to point this out because I have never seen a latch get broken off of one of these. We got some cuts in the handle, but this version's made in Canada. And hey, we do have the back latch. Dual custom shop hang tags. Well, actually, let's make that a trifecta. With spare toggle switch plate and case key. And Gibson Gold warranty. Is it filled out? Yes. Ah, and darn, they just called it a regular Les Paul custom. But let's see if our COA calls it Skyline. Nope. This is just kind of a mysterious series. I doubt they made that many of these. Like, if you're going to press me for information, I would guess between 2 and as many as 5 of each example. But time will tell. But now let us take apart this baguette to see if anyone can truly cook in the town of Paris. Fude fafa. There's one spec on this that ended up surprising me, but let's go ahead and check out our pickups. I cleaned those up so they don't have handprints all over them anymore. But surprise, surprise, basic stuff. 490R in the neck, 498T in the bridge, regular Les Paul custom style pickups. Within the circuit, it reads 13.45 k ohms in the bridge, 7.79 in the neck, and they play together at 4.93. But check this out, we do have a long neck tenon, but unfortunately I cannot see where the maple top joins onto our body. I'm sure it's there somewhere, we just can't see it because of the black paint. But I didn't see any other markings in here that tell us anything anyways. There is like a marker smudge right there. Same thing is true for our bridge pickup cavity. Not much going on in here. But did you notice the dates of the pickups? They go all the way back to summer of 2017. But here's another unique thing about this as a Les Paul custom. Typically, these will have gold hardware. I was reading a forum post where somebody actually decided to buy one of these at Dave's shop because they liked the fact that it wasn't gold. There's a lot of guys who hate the cheap gold hardware on electric guitars, and it's probably because they're the guys that sweat just eat straight through it. But this is just a regular Les Paul custom. It's got a Nashville style bridge, not a historic ABR1. And yes, I will be putting that on the correct manner. It was upside down when I got it, and it's a full weight tailpiece. Also might have noticed this does not come stock with a pick guard. I think that's to help take away from this side of the instrument. They want this to be the main focal point. If you're a fan of Paris, feel free to chime in and let us know what all these buildings are. I at least know the Eiffel Tower. Then as we come on down here, it looks like they included the Louvre over here. That's what those triangles are. That's an interesting art museum. I actually have been there before when I was like 10, but pretty much the only thing I remember are all the scammers running around trying to put bracelets on you and then wanting to charge you like 50 euros or whatever. Scammers, go away. But overall, I think this is a model that's grown on me. When I first saw it, did not like it at all. But as a fun collectible, it kind of makes sense. Although I think I do prefer the ones that have a little bit more blue within them. But beggars can't be choosers on this model. But if you get it in the light just right, you can see the center seam line. But if you look closely, you can actually see some flame figuring under here. So wouldn't that be cool if somebody gigged this heavily, started to wear through the paint, and exposed flame in the sky? Otherwise, we just need to take a look at our unique binding. They got 3 layers of cream with 4 layers of prominent black. They really like to toy around with ebony binding around this time period. It's something you kind of have to get used to, because normally you want the popping layer on the outside rather than hiding it, but it just does something completely different for the guitar when it's on an ebony finish. Although when it comes to the fretboard, it's not as exciting. It is there, we've got the black fret nibs on top of everything, but it just completely disappears. I've always thought it looks sweet on the headstock. Well, you know what? Now that I look at it right here, you can actually see there's flame on this side too. There must have been a mineral streak or something underneath it. But yeah, that's pretty evenly flamed. As far as condition, in case I ever sell this guitar in the future, there is a small ding right here, as well as some scuffs in our arm resting area, and just some general scuffs all over, as is common with many of ebony finished guitars. Notice, you don't see it as much on the color. But moving on from our mahogany body 2-piece maple top, you've got the mahogany neck with the Richlite fretboard. So what is Richlite? It is a man-made recycled material out of rosin and recycled paper. You don't believe me? Here's how Gibson was advertising it. And if you have a Richlite equipped guitar, you're probably wondering, how do you clean your fretboard? Richlite suggests just using a damp paper towel. Now bear in mind, not completely soaking, but just damp enough that you can wipe off any residue. Richlite was introduced into Gibson's catalog in 2011 when the government raids happened, and it made it tricky for them to source ebony for a couple of years. We're talking 2011 through early 2019. Now there are models past that have used Richlite, and there's some people who really love Richlite, because unlike a traditional wooden fretboard, with changes of heat and humidity, you're not going to get fret nib gaps or cracks along here. Now you're joining it on to a wooden neck, so you might still get some minor stuff, but as far as fret sprout, you shouldn't ever have to worry about that. I like Richlite a lot more now that it's not forced upon us on every single model that used to be ebony. But our frets polished up nicely, and I measure a 12-inch fretboard radius with a 24 3/4-inch scale, a 1.7-inch Corian nut with a 2.065 12th fret, 0.86 first fret neck depth, and 0.96 at the 12th. Just seems like your typical C-shaped, medium-ish territory neck. There's a look at that neck profile at the 1st fret and the 12th fret. And also, did you notice, due to our black binding, you have to have the white side dots. But now our beautiful headstock. Outside of our reversed binding, it's just all your regular stuff. Gibson mother of pearl logo with your custom block up here. But then our truss rod. It might look good, but you always have to make sure it actually works. So far so good, but I'll check that more off camera. But I always thought the truss rod covers on these looked a little bit different. And I was right. These are very similar to like historic junior style truss rod covers, where it's actually only single ply, but it looks like they actually paint the black layer in Paris on top of it, like it's a screen print or something. It's not your usual multi-layer situation thing going on. So there is no beveled edge. Now we talked about varying small nitpicky detail stuff. You'll find this a lot in the late Henry J era, where there's like lines around the binding right here. And you can see they did a very poor job matching these binding pieces together. Because when you look at all the other corners, everything's looking pretty good and smooth until you get there. I noticed one other thing that kind of bugs me about this guitar. There's a gap between the fretboard and the neck pickup. Now that does happen occasionally, but when I had the screws out, I noticed you could actually move this to make it fit against it directly. So I wonder if that was more of a drilling issue for where the screws go, rather than construction. Doesn't help that the edge of the fretboard has buffing compound and stuff that's just stuck to it. I tried to clean it off. Oh, and I forgot to mention this earlier. You can see some internal cracking to our speed knobs. It's a bummer, but it happens. This was a really fun surprise spec that I didn't know about this guitar when I bought it. These are custom shop chambered, so add that to the list of things that people will hate this guitar for. That doesn't look to me like anybody's modified anything here. We just have our regular Gibson branded pots. Cool thing about custom shop chambering is it's all connected here. So if you drop something in there, it'll eventually fall out down here. Whereas Gibson USA chambering, they're not connected like that. And just for fun, let's prove that. So this is looking up towards the cutaway of the instrument. You can see where the wires for the pickups come out of that channel. Now heading in right past the pots, you can see where this center block is kind of cut away. So it's not like an ES335, where it's a continuous center block. They just leave this block of wood right here for your bridge and tailpiece. They don't need anything over here. Then going in from the toggle switch, it just goes down the side until we eventually meet the rest of those chambers we were looking at. But just in case you don't believe me that the chambers aren't connected, we're gonna put this friendly bat through. In we go. Down the machine. Over. Oh, yep, there we saw it. You saw it, but getting it out, that was a whole different other story. It's like dropping a pick in your acoustic guitar. Personally, that makes me like this guitar even more. Apparently, I think the Boogie Van series is also chambered. But we do have a chrome output jack plate, strap buttons in your usual positions, the other one's up here. But again, the very unusual spec to not do the binding on the back. I think in retrospect, they probably thank themselves for not doing that, because a lot of these got sold at or below dealer cost. As far as detail condition, there are some scuffs right here I was unable to polish out. And you got a couple of light marks in this area, as well as some down here. So not a mint condition example, but respectable. All things considered, the neckline's actually really good. Just have a little showing right here where the binding and neck meet. Black thin binding in the cutaway is kind of interesting to see. And here's the other side, just for completeness. Ooh, looks like we got some scuffs over here. But if you ever see a white line around a black bound Gibson, or even a cream bound one, sometimes all that is just buffing compound stuck within that ledge. And with little effort, you can make most of that go away. As far as the condition of the neck, it was pretty good as well, except for some scuffs right here. I'm not sure what they were doing. Maybe a slight capo use. In the grand scheme of things, I don't think most shops would even bother disclosing that. But you got your Gibson custom decal with your Grover tuners. And this one is serial number 800-107, which if you look at all the old ones, this was one of the blown out ones sold at Hubert Breeze over in Michigan. I bought it from a shop out of New York. So it's been to at least 4 states. All said, the entire city only weighs 8 pounds, 6.4 ounces. Let's go ahead, plug it in, and hear those sweet sounds. 490R, 498T pickups, they sound pretty decent. I'm happy to say I finally documented one of the Skyline Les Pauls. Are they my favorite ones that the Henry J era produced? No, but I've grown to like them a lot more than when I first saw them. It's just kind of a quirky collector's guitar, or for somebody who's really passionate about these cities and their cultures. That's what's kind of unique about these. This might appeal to somebody who doesn't like guitars in general. I could see this hung up at a town hall in Paris, or some sort of a history museum for each of the individual places that they're trying to represent here. And in fact, that's probably where many of these actually ended up. So is it one for everyone? No, but as far as playability goes, it's perfectly fine. If you've had a black bound Les Paul Custom before, it's very similar outside of the whole not having the back binding thing, which might be a plus to some. But I hope you enjoy your newfound guitar knowledge. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and we'll catch you tomorrow on the next one. Take care.